请各位领导来宾戴上同串耳机，发言人将以英文致辞。谢谢。
你好。Really delighted to be here this morning. It's a privilege and extremely excited about the potential of what GES represents. We believe passionately. Is this working okay, or should I just go use this microphone?
It's good.
Okay. We believe passionately that talent is equally distributed around the world, but opportunity is not. And so a fundamental goal of ours, and I think we share with our other hosts and the people in this room, is we believe everybody should have equal opportunity to participate in the future, driven by having great access to quality education. And so that's a fundamental belief that we have, and we believe gatherings like this of like-minded people that want to change the world can make this happen. It's a Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And so with this conference, we think we're planting a tree. Should have been maybe done 20 years ago, but we think the fruits of this are going to be significant over time. I'm going to talk about 4 forces in my talk that we think shape the future of not only learning and education, but society overall. The first is the concept of yin and yang. What we're really talking about here is there's good forces and there's negative forces. There's dark and there's light. And understand how those interact with each other, we think is important. So for example, when Marco Polo went to China from Italy in 1271, it took him 24 years to go there and back. And when he returned, he got arrested. Today, to go from Rome to Beijing takes 10 hours. And if your Wi-Fi doesn't work, you're angry. But the negative for this is there's 1 metric ton of CO2 per person that's consumed on a flight from Rome to Beijing. Another piece of good and bad, Netscape was launched in 1994 by Mark Andreessen, effectively this transformative force of the internet. The dot-com bubble burst in 2000 with $7 trillion of capital that was destroyed over a 2-year period of time. But in the wake of that destruction, you've had some amazing businesses that have come after. TAL, our gracious host, was launched in 2003. Today is the largest market cap education company in the world at $14 billion. Facebook was launched in 2004. YouTube was 2005. You had the iPhone that launched 10 years ago by Apple. Airbnb was created in 2008, effectively disrupting the hospitality industry as we know it. Uber was launched in 2009, and Didi was in 2012, just for some examples. Another yin and yang is the growth of the global middle class, which has been staggering over the past 15 years. So in 2000, there was 1.4 billion people in the middle class. Today, there's 2.5 billion people in the middle class. Against that, very positive trend, you have the reality that there's 3 billion people in the world today that live on $2.50 or less. Remarkably, 22,000 children die every single day from starvation. 2,000 people die per day for lack of access to clean water. And 1.6 billion people don't have access to electricity. That's a quarter of the world's population. Yet, very good news, 1 in 3 babies born today will live to be 100 years old or greater. 1 in 3 people today will outlive their savings. There's 1.2 billion people that are going to be in K-12 schools by 2030. That's really good news. That's the most students, children that's ever been in school. The negative against that is about half of them are either going to drop out or not have access to quality education, effectively leaving them behind. Technology has done remarkable things of creating access and increasing productivity from around the world. At the same time, technology and automation is taking away jobs at scary type of pace. And the hyperconnectivity that we see in the world has some very positive realities to it. WeChat has nearly 1 billion people on its network with 38 billion messages a day. You're going to hear from Cindy Mee this afternoon at VIP Kids. She's able to teach Chinese children English by using teachers that are based in the United States. Negative hyperconnectivity is terrorists using networks like Twitter to organize themselves. So what we see is this real power of interconnected ideas. And so I want to talk about the power of 2 geographical trends that we think are transforming the world as we know it. So the old Silk Road was as much about exchanging of ideas and knowledge as it was merchandise. So President Xi's One Belt, One Road really talks about this new Silk Road effectively connecting the Eastern Hemisphere. Silicon Valley, 100 years ago, all it was apricot orchards and apple fields. The farm, which is what Stanford's known by, was only a 25-year-old institution that few people knew anything about. 50 years ago, Gordon Moore came up with this idea that computing power was going to double every couple of years. And what became known as Moore's Law, which is interesting, that not only did it came to pass, but this was not a scientific law. This was basically Gordon Moore imposing his will upon an industry, not only transforming the technology industry, but the world as we know it. The consequences of that have been pretty profound. So the cost of computing just in the last 15 years has gone down 99%. The cost of storage is basically free with infinite capacity. If the automobile industry would have had that same kind of progress, a Ford Taurus that cost $20,000 in 1990 would cost less than $1 today, and you'd throw it away after you used it. Internet access has exploded since the dot-com bubble burst, from 371 million people on the internet to 3.7 billion today. Mobile phones have gone up about tenfold to 7 billion people with a mobile phone. Smartphones didn't exist in 2000. Today there's 2.6 billion smartphones, effectively a computer in your pocket. App downloads have gone from 0 to 258 billion last year. So let's an entrepreneur go from idea to reaching tens of millions of people at breathtaking speeds. So what's become of Silicon Valley today, obviously, is it's the home of a number of game-changing corporations, from Apple to Google to Facebook, and really making a huge change not only in Silicon Valley but in the world around it. But what's exciting to us is the mindset of entrepreneurship and innovation that's made Silicon Valley such a special place. It's going global and it's going viral. So we like to say the new global Silicon Valley is from Austin to Boston, from Chicago to Sao Paulo, from Mumbai to Shanghai to Dubai. So that's the global Silicon Valley, and we think that's a very powerful force that's at work. And what Silicon Valley is really about, it's not about bits and bytes and chips. It's really about big ideas, exponential growth. And so what we see coming together is this merger of the new Silk Road with the global Silicon Valley. The common denominator of these two forces is the power of opportunity is really driven by imagination. And so imagining what can become and how you solve these big problems, the biggest of which, how we give everybody equal opportunity to participate in the future, we think is extraordinarily important, but also extraordinarily exciting. You look at the change that's taken place in the world over the past 25 years. The 5 largest market cap companies in 1991 were Exxon, Philip Morris, Walmart, General Electric, and Merck. Most of these being industrial businesses that were formed a long time before they made it on this list. If you look at the 5 largest market cap companies today, it's Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook. The oldest of which is Microsoft, which was started in 1975. If you look at the 6th and 8th largest market cap companies in the world, it's Tencent and Alibaba. By the way, Tencent is within basically a blink of Facebook. And what's so amazing about this is that not that these companies were created in China, but the fact that they didn't exist 20 years ago. and now they're the 6th and 8th largest market cap companies in the world. Looking at the shift in the global middle class and these forces at work, today, middle class is pretty much equal between North America and Asia Pacific. You fast forward to 2030, and the shift is remarkable to Asia Pacific. Also, when you look at how capital is being deployed, Silicon Valley has been where venture capital has been the most active for a long time. $30 billion was invested in Silicon Valley in 2016. You look at Beijing and Shanghai together, had $30 billion of venture capital invested in it last year. So you're seeing a profound shift take place. The third force I'm going to talk about is digital disruption. And we all know about how software is eating the world and how automation is taking jobs. But I want to put some framework around it and think about how that applies to what we need to do as it relates to education. Historically, the blue-collar worker was the heart and soul of the middle class. But these blue-collar workers are under siege due to technology and automation. Look at Amazon alone, employs 45,000 robots. In China this year, 90,000 robots are being deployed. By 2020, it's going to be 175,000 robots in China alone. So McKinsey says that there's 350 million manufacturing and warehouse worker jobs that could be eliminated in the next 10 years. But it's not just blue-collar workers, it's also white-collar workers. So we estimate that there's 40 million middle-skilled jobs that could be eliminated by 2025. So what are these jobs? $7 trillion is expected to be managed by robots by 2025. Already, the Associated Press has 3,000 companies that did financial analysis on every single quarter by robots. So what does this mean if you think about the future? Robots are going to be managing money, making decisions based on inputs from other robots. So add this all up, and 50% of all jobs are at risk of being eliminated over the next 20 years. So what do you do about it? Smart people like Mark Zuckerberg say, well, everybody should be a computer programmer because he could hire any person with those type of skills because they just have an insatiable demand for people with computer skills. And in fact, there's 1.2 million computer science job openings by 2020 in the United States alone. No less an expert than the Harvard Business Review says that data science is the sexiest job in the 21st century. And it's sexy because there's a lot of high-paying jobs that are in demand. The problem with this logic is effectively this chart. What this shows is that human capabilities are on a linear growth curve, and technology is on an exponential curve, and we're here. So what does this mean? Pretty soon, technology will be replacing the technologists, or in other words, it's not just blue-collar jobs and white-collar jobs, it's also no-collar jobs. So the killer jobs of today are going to be killed tomorrow, and that is a reality that we have to face. So if you think by 2021, what could it look like? Here's what some other smart people say. Paul Krugman, the Nobel laureate economist, says we could be looking at a society which all the gains and wealth accrue to whoever owns the robots. Bill Gates says if a robot comes in to do a human job, you think that we tax it at a similar level. Sam Altman, who's the CEO of Y Combinator, says the obvious conclusion is the government will just have to give these people money. So the reality of this is technology automation is not a new phenomenon. In fact, John Maynard Keynes in 1930 talked about this new disease called technological unemployment. And so, going back a couple hundred years, 95% of all jobs in America were agriculture jobs. Today, it's 1%. So the shift is just as natural as the sun coming up in the east. And so what we know is that automation will continue to eat jobs. But what automation doesn't do is it doesn't eat work. And so we just got to reimagine what the future looks like and what these jobs that are going to be created are. So the fourth and final shift I want to talk about is the knowledge economy. And this reality that in the global marketplace that we're in, the knowledge-based economy, what you know, your education makes the difference not only how an individual does, but how a company does, and for that matter, how well a country does. So there's a direct correlation between levels of college attainment and GDP growth. There's a direct correlation between a person's income and their level of education. There's a direct correlation with unemployment. Even automation, the more education you have, the less likely it is that your job is going to be made obsolete through technology. The bad news is the cost of education continues to rise faster than inflation. So just at the same time where education is the most important, it's become the least obtainable in many respects. So the cost of college in the United States has grown 3.5 times inflation since 1980. College debt in the United States has gone up over double to $1.4 trillion. And so that just is a fundamental problem that entrepreneurs need to solve. The good news is that we've had digital tracks that have been laid over the last 20 years with 3.7 billion people on the internet. And creativity, thinking about how we can democratize access to learning through lower cost, greater access, and ultimately higher quality is very much happening in the education innovation ecosystem. And you're also seeing these rapidly growing scaled models that are being launched in the marketplace today, what we call weapons of mass instruction. These companies that are reaching millions of students at record speeds. An example of this is Coursera, which was launched out of Stanford University 5 years ago. There's now 28 million students that have been on the Coursera platform, 150 universities, 2,000 courses, and these classes are available for free. So that's very, very encouraging in terms of how we can provide access to the future through quality education. Another fundamental reality and a shift that's taking place in the knowledge economy is because of the fast pace of change and automation. You're no longer going to be able to fill up your knowledge tank to age 25 and drive off through life. You're going to continually need to find ways to obtain knowledge, and not through traditional sources. So we call that concept Kaizen EDU, it's like lifelong learning. So the Kaizen, the Japanese term for continuous improvement, we say in the world that we're in, Kaizen EDU means that we're going to have to continuously be learning. So the old system was you played from 0 to 5, you would learn from 5 to 25, you worked from 25 to 65, and then you retired. The new system is you basically learn from the time you're born to the time you retire, if you ever retire. And what you're going to learn, and obviously STEM is a critical thing to have as part of your education, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But we call this the 7 C's of a future learner. The first C is critical thinking, creativity, communication, cultural fluency in this interconnected global marketplace that we're in, civic engagement, collaboration, and character. We think those 7 C's are complementary to other core skills that people have that are foundational for how you continue to build upon that to the future. Another trend we see is what we call robo-ed, and this is the opportunity to create personalized learning through artificial intelligence and software. Andrew Ng, who's also a founder of Coursera, says that AI is the new electricity. And what that means really is that AI is going to be ubiquitous and it's going to be invisible, but it's going to have a profound impact on how people learn. We did a survey recently of 1,000 leaders in the education field, and while automation and artificial intelligence is going to take away jobs, 48% of the survey said that it's going to play the largest role in providing individuals improved access to the future. And so you already see how AI is working in things like healthcare, where a traditional doctor has only a 50% accuracy in terms of diagnosing lung cancer. But IBM's Watson, the Jeopardy reigning champion, had a 90% accuracy in terms of diagnosing lung cancer. So what we see is a world where you have adaptive technology like you see with Netflix and Spotify and Amazon, creating that personalized learning experience with every single click. combined with the diagnostic technology you see with an IBM or 23andMe, and that's the future. Another concept is what we call knowledge as a currency. So this is the whole idea that the old currency for future opportunity was the diploma. And that diploma basically gave you access to jobs, and the more valuable that diploma was from the more prestigious university, the more valuable the currency. We think that that diploma is going to be augmented through other ways people are able to represent what they know and their knowledge. You know, like think of it almost like a playlist, which is going to be basically catalyzed by data science and big data. Another concept that we think is critical in terms of how we're going to create equal opportunity to participate in the future through education is Hollywood meets Harvard. And this is basically the idea that you're learning from the entertainment world not only critical things about how do you engage people, because if you're not engaged, you're not going to pay attention or learn, but also thinking about new models for access and consistency. So engagement, access, cost, and consistency are all part of what we think is this Hollywood meets Harvard. The last and final idea, and I think this is a critical idea, is ROE, or return on education, because we think the companies that create the greatest return on education or the greatest outcomes are the ones that are going to create the greatest financial returns, or ROI. So we think there's complete alignment with funding the best companies that are showing the greatest educational impact in terms of helping everybody have an equal opportunity to participate in the future. So just as I close, and they're flashing a bunch of cards at me, so I know that my time is out. You know, what I'd like to say is we do think what's going on here over the next couple of days is an important catalyst in terms of how we solve this very big objective of how people can participate in the future for equal opportunity to access quality education. And so, as Lao Tzu said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We think this is a very big step, and we very much appreciate it. Xia xia. Thank you.